Today we will be learning 3 different methods of shading. For this project, you will need a pencil, a pen, an eraser, and a white sheet of paper, as well as a ruler. First, we are going to make 4 boxes. Using your pencil and ruler, lightly draw a horizontal line about halfway down on your paper, from across one side to the other. Do the same thing again, but this time make it a vertical line, halfway from top to bottom. Now that we have our 4 boxes drawn, let's go ahead and label them. In box number 1 on the top left corner, go ahead and label it lines. In box number 2 at the top right corner, label it cross-hatching. In box number 3 at the bottom left corner, label it stippling. And in the last box, box number 4 at the bottom right corner, label it applied techniques. In box number 1, we are going to use our pencil and ruler. We will be drawing a variety of lines, both thick and thin, and close together and spaced apart. You can choose to draw your lines horizontally, vertically, or as I am doing, diagonally. Some artists use only lines to shade their artwork and make it look realistic. In order to do this, you will want to make sure that some lines are very close together. This makes it appear as if something is becoming darker or falling into shadow. Then, in some parts of your box, you will want to begin to space your lines out apart. This makes it look as if light is shining on an object. By practicing this, you will learn these techniques. When you have filled about half of your box with lines, go ahead and abandon your ruler and try drawing a line yourself. It may not be perfectly straight, but this is the point. Once you have drawn this slightly curved and imperfect line, I want you to continue to keep drawing this line, but following each little curve, bump, zigzag, and mistake that you made when you didn't use the ruler. Continue to do this until the rest of your box is filled. This is another technique that artists use. By following the contour of certain objects, it can appear as if shadows are bending or taking shape on the objects that the artist is drawing. For our second box, we will use a technique called cross-hatching. You may be familiar with cross-hatching if you read comic books, as many artists who draw comic books use this technique to give their characters depth, shadow, and different types of shading. For this step, don't worry about using your ruler as much. Simply use your pencil. At the top right corner of our second box, we are going to make it look lighter. And at the bottom left corner of our box, we want it to look darker. In order to achieve this, at the bottom left corner, start drawing diagonal lines very close to one another, just as we had practiced in our first box. Continue to do this across your second box, but as you move along closer to the right, begin to space out your lines further and further apart. Once you have finished this step, apply the same directions. However, this time you will be using diagonal lines going in the opposite direction of the first set of lines that you drew in your second box. Continue to space them apart as you get closer and closer to the right side of your second box. Once you have completed this, you will have achieved crosshatching. Box number 3 will require your pen. This technique is called stippling. Artists also use this when trying to shade objects and make them appear three-dimensional and realistic. In this box, you will randomly place dots all across the box, either close together or far apart. It is up to you. However, make sure that some spots have dots very close together and other areas have dots very spread apart. You want to make sure you have variation within the box so that you can tell which areas are darker and lighter. The dark spots will create the illusion of shadow and depth, while the light spots will create the illusion of light. Feel free to draw along with me in pencil, and then when you're finished, you can trace over it in pen. Or if you're feeling really confident, you can simply draw in pen. First, let's draw an apple, and let's determine that our light source, or the direction from which the light is facing the apple, is coming from the top right corner of our box. Next, draw a series of curved lines on your apple. Start on the bottom, drawing them from left to right. Start close together, and as you work your way up, make them more and more spaced apart. Also, as you work your way up, make sure that the lines do not all the way connect to the right side of the apple. This will make it appear as if the apple has a highlight, otherwise known as a spot where the light reflects off the surface. Next, we will draw the shadow of the apple, cast on the surface it sits on. First, draw 2 diagonal lines extending from the bottom of the apple. Then, fill in the space between these lines using the cross-hatching method we practiced in step 2. When cross-hatching, make sure that the lines are first close together near the bottom of the apple. And as you work your way out toward the edge of the paper at the bottom of your box, make sure that the lines begin to spread farther and farther apart. This makes the shadow look as if it's darker near the bottom of the apple and fades out as it stretches out on the surface. Lastly, we will use stippling to shade our background. On the top left, and bottom right corners of our box, add several dots close together. This will make it appear as if the area has a large amount of shadow to it. As you work your way toward the top right corner of your 4th box, begin to space out your dots. By the time you reach the top right corner, be sure to leave as little dots as possible, if any. This will create the illusion that a light is shining from the top right corner of your box. And there you have it. You have learned 3 new techniques to make your art appear more realistic with more depth and shadow.